Turkey has entered its sixth night of demonstrations against the arrest of the Turkish president's main opponent, that being Ekrem İmamoğlu. And over 1,000 people have been detained. Tens of thousands of people across several Turkish cities have been protesting. Prosecutors have accused I don't know if he's been made, I think he's a former mayor now, he was sacked as mayor as he was arrested, of corruption, which he denies. Now, the arrest took place days before he was due to be elected as the presidential candidate for the Republicans People Party. He's now been declared that he is the presidential candidate while he's under arrest. President Erdogan has called them anti-government protests that have turned into a movement of violence. And just so you know that travel information has been updated now to say that if you're going to Turkey, stay away from any of these demonstrations, which could turn violent. And a lot of the images that I'm seeing now from on the screens around me now are people being arrested, police with helmets on and full riot gear, as we would expect it to be in this country. They've been showered with water cannons, and also with spray into their eyes. So it's not looking very good for Erdogan at the moment, but neither is it looking good for democracy. So let's talk now to Ibrahim Doğuş, who's the director of the Centre for Turkey Studies based in London. Ibrahim, it's great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Now, this is not the first time we've seen the Turkish people come out against even Erdogan.
That's true. I mean, Turkey has seen a lot of mass uprisings towards injustices in the country. The biggest one before this particular wave of protest was in 2013. If you remember, Gezi Park uprising by people at the time, it was an anti-government protest because people were not happy with the direction the country was going towards under this current government, and yet people were proven right, from 2013, that democracy was deteriorating constantly. Turkey was becoming more and more authoritarian. And this latest arrest of Mr. İmamoğlu is not just about one man and one mayoralty. It is about the democracy of the country. People on the street are not just asking for their basic rights to choose their politicians, their mayors, their leaders. They're also trying to save whatever is left of the fragile Turkish democracy.
And that is the thing, when you look at Turkey and you see the ultimate power that Erdogan has had over the country for over 2 decades now, my understanding is that he can't run again in 2028 unless he changes the Turkish constitution. Is that right?
Yeah, President Erdogan has changed the constitution once to create the presidential system rather than by abolishing the parliamentary system and introducing the presidential system. Now he's not, at the time when he made this change, he was quite strong and very popular. It was very easy for him to win 50% plus one to become the president of the country. Under current conditions, when Turkey is not doing well economically, people are not happy with the direction of the country. So he's unlikely to win an election with 50% plus one. So what he does is he removes any potential threat to his presidency. He finds, it's an easy sort of a textbook attitude towards opposition. He finds ways to create problems like this, issues like this, and then he crushes the opposition by force. He arrests their leaders, he jails them, he sentences them to prison, then he prevents them from running for president. Then he literally chooses who he's going to run against. So he removes all potential strong leaders from the scene of democracy, and then he ends up getting an opponent that he can beat. Then he declares to the world that, look, I have an election. We have a functioning democracy. There's a ballot box. People have chosen me over the other candidate. But then people forget about what happened. The way elections have run have never been fair in the country. And this is not the first time the government is removing a mayor from position. They have removed hundreds of Kurdish mayors before this. This has become a big issue in the west of Turkey because Mr. İmamoğlu is very popular and he's the mayor of Istanbul, the largest city in the country. But before him, I would say more than 100 Kurdish mayors were removed from their positions. Many of them are still in prison. They were persecuted and imprisoned on fabricated charges like Mr. İmamoğlu. So I'm really worried about future of the democracy in the country.
But I mean, by the sounds of it, democracy has already left the building. I mean, and many of the Turkish people are feeling that way. But with Mr. İmamoğlu, he is, like you said, extremely popular. He's extremely relevant. He has a way of talking to the public that they all really support him. What is your fear for what might happen to him? I mean, there is a spotlight on this now, as much as Mr. Erdogan doesn't really care about that. But what do you expect to happen next?
I mean, I wouldn't be very optimistic about what might happen to Mr. İmamoğlu, and I'm worried that he will end up spending years in prison before he is released. Remember, there are many other elected officials who are still in prison, including Mr. Selahattin Demirtas, who was the leader of the third biggest political party in the country, which happened to be a pro-Kurdish political party. They've jailed him on fabricated charges, and he's been in prison since 8 years. European Court of Human Rights, Council of Europe, many international bodies have called on Turkish government to release him, and he's still in jail. There are businessmen who have done nothing but run their own businesses successfully, and they stood up against injustices in the country, like Osman Kavala and many others. They're still in jail. It's been years. So this is not a good time for Turkey, not just in terms of democracy, but also for people. People are losing their hopes. A lot of young people on the streets are so scared they cannot show their faces in those demonstrations. When you interview them, they will say, "Look, I just don't want to lose my future." Because they will be persecuted, they will not be given a job, at least. The least that will happen to them is they will not be able to get a good job in the country because they'll be targeted. So, if those people lose their hopes, what kind of country can you build with your young people losing all their hopes in the country?
Are you disappointed that there hasn't been more pressure from outside of Turkey? I mean, there are various issues, aren't there? The EU get involved and say, oh, you need to behave yourself, but really, it's not very much. And when you're seeing a democracy being stolen like this, and there are other places in the world it is currently happening as well, and really the outside influence is going, oh, that's not really fair, but nobody's really doing anything. Is this because Erdogan has such a massive say in NATO, that he has such an important role as the second biggest army and armed services in NATO, that he's almost too big to tell what to do?
I think it's a combination of a lot of different factors, including the NATO membership, security and defense policies that Turkey has, which aligns with Britain, aligns with Europe and so on. But at the same time, the issue of immigration is a big matter for Europe. I mean, most of our countries in Europe, including our own Britain, is very much worried about another wave of migrants leaving Turkey or leaving their countries, moving into Turkey, and then from Turkey coming into the rest of Europe. So all that has given Mr. Erdogan a huge advantage. He has managed to weaponize migration. He has managed to weaponize defense, in policy. Think about Syria, think about rest of Middle East. Turkey is playing a significant role. He has managed to play Russia against US, US against Russia. So he has played his game smartly in terms of keeping himself in power. And that's a very worrying factor, because if we lose Turkey, if Turkey becomes an unreliable ally in NATO or with Britain or any other European countries, we're not sure what might happen afterwards. We cannot let Turkey go any further into authoritarianism. It's already very much authoritarian. It's an authoritarian regime, and we should find a way to help Turkish government or Turkish people, Kurdish people in that country, to move away from authoritarianism and become a proper, better democratic state.
But like you say, all that Erdogan has to do is to threaten to open the gates to all those migrants that he's holding back. I mean, millions of people that, as you said, he has now weaponized. But I mean, look, Erdogan is not a young man. You know, we often see these dictators, these autocrats, they think they're going to live forever. Is there a plan for after him? I mean, he may think he's going to live forever, but he won't.
I don't think his party is prepared, for an after post-Erdogan country. He has the foreign secretary. He's got lots of lieutenants around him who are all waiting to replace him as the leader of their party, therefore to become the leader of the country. But I doubt that they have the charisma he has. He has managed, because he's been around for a very long time. He's got a huge grassroots support. Still, he enjoys 20%, 25%, 30% almost of the popular sport in the country, because people are suffering and states seem to find their way. I mean, he has managed to utilize the state's power to make people feel that post-Erdogan, they will lose a lot. Therefore, they stick with him. Nationalism is quite high in the country. I mean, the poorer sections of the society are backing him. Middle classes, upper middle classes are not happy with the current regime. They either find a way to leave the country, take their assets and wealth with them to European countries, or if they stay in the country, they stay quieter and wait for the moment to go for this government to change. All that is it's not good for Turkey. It's not good for people of Turkey, but it's also not good for Britain, for other European countries who want to see a strong ally in Turkey, because Turkey is a good ally if they are reliable, if they are democratic, if there's peace in the country. But if there's internal democracy, exactly.
Sorry, strategically, Turkey is incredibly important to the West, isn't it? Where it's placed, the relationships that it's got, everything about Turkey is vital to the security of the West, not least because of the second largest military in NATO. I mean, if Russia were to carry out what is expected of it in the coming years, and America backs off from Article 5, then Turkey would be our only hope. So this is something that actually the West should be paying absolute attention to, and supporting the people with a democratic and fair and safe country.
Indeed. If there's democracy in Turkey, Turkey will become a reliable ally for NATO, for Europe, for Britain. I mean, without a democracy, if everything in the country is decided by one man, that man may change their mind. That man may feel threatened from democracy. That man may feel Russians are spies. And that may create a further problem for us all. So it's important to realize this, and it's important. We have great relations with the Turkish government as Britain. So our Foreign Office, our government, whether it's Labour government or a Tory government, have always had great relations with any Turkish government. We need to utilize this smartly, and we need to talk to Erdogan and his people and say, this is not a path to take. If you take this path, look what happened to others who become authoritarian and then dictatorial. You may enjoy another 5 years in power, but that's it. People of your country will find their one way or another, they will topple your regime. This is what happened in Iraq. This is what happened in, Libya. This is what happened in many of those other countries. So we don't want that to happen in Turkey. We don't want military, coups in Turkey. We want people to be able to live in peace and harmony under a democratic regime. And President Erdogan, for him, it's not yet too late, I would say. He can still make a move and end all these troubles by releasing his political opponents, by admitting a mistake, going for an election, maybe an early election, which he may win or lose. And if he should be able to say, I've done my bit with good times and bad times, I'm done, I'm leaving, a new regime comes in, they start rebuilding the country. If he wins again, he doesn't make the same mistakes, hopefully. He doesn't repeat what he did in the last 10 years. Remember, his first 10 years were great for the country.
Yeah.
The economy was booming, human rights were respected. There was a talk about a common constitution which would respect all minority rights, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, women's rights. All of that was going to be respected. But then everything went sideways. And today we have this major crisis where we're trying to talk about saving whatever is left of the democracy in Turkey.
It's extraordinary what's happening around the world at the moment. I happen to be incredibly fond of Turkish people. I had a couple of Turkish au pairs who were part of my family. I love them. Ibrahim, It's great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Ibrahim Doğuş, Director of the Centre for Turkey Studies based in London. Quick break, back in a sec.